On to Chapter 65, 11082, 118, 134. The code, the fine amount is $1,000. That we are required to be in line and comparative to the state, consistent with the state code. And the state building code fine amount is $5,000. So we're doing that to take our antiquated code and make it consistent with the state. In addition to that, all of our fine structure in the code right now is a misdemeanor. That means it is a criminal offense. We are removing all of the criminal language and making them all civil violations, so they will not be criminal in nature.
Okay. Motion to introduce.
Second.
I was trying to figure out how I was going to start this presentation. I'm not sure where to start. So we're just going to open up with, I'm going to play out a scenario, a simple scenario. Most of us have probably been to traffic court. We've gotten a ticket or ran a stop sign or something of that ilk. And so when you approach the bench in the municipal court, what's the first thing that the judge asks you when you approach the bench? He or she will ask you, do you waive your right to due process? So in the simplest manner, I want to try and explain this, unless you waive due process, the court has no jurisdiction to hear your case in a municipal court. And so, again, no offense towards the judges, but they work in support of the municipal statutes and codes. So understand that a judge that works in a municipal court in any given municipality, they can't just show up at another municipal court in another county and serve as a judge. Think about this like police officers. Police officers enforce the statutes and the codes and laws within a given municipality, a city or a county, right? So they can't just go to another county and operate and function as a police officer because they don't have jurisdiction there. Understand? And so maybe that's a wrong term, but they work for the municipality. Again, not to disparage the judges or the police officers. And so, like, if any given municipality has certain codes or statutes that maybe they're not reflected the same way, or they don't even exist in another county, so that officer can't go over that county and enforce a code or a statute that's been assigned by the county council, agreed upon and signed into law, right? Y'all understand? And by the way, just for clarity's sake, that only Congress at the federal level or at the state level, only Congress can create laws. Municipal governments do not create laws, or they would beg to differ with me, I'm sure, but they create statutes, okay, codes, administrative functions, rules that are administrative, that are corporate law. And so, why am I even speaking about this? I'm seeing things happen in the county that my son, David Beverly, lives in. This is about the adoption of the IPMC, the International Property Maintenance Codes. Now, at first blush, it looks like these are good ideas because they're going to protect people from living in squalor, from living in buildings that don't meet a standard of living or quality of standard of living. But in reality, what they'll do is there are people who are impoverished who can't perform repairs on their homes. So now, with the adoption of the International Property Maintenance Codes, a code enforcement official for said county can go into their house and decide that they violated one of their codes, and then either force the person to fix it. Well, maybe they don't have the money to fix it or the resources. And then they also apply fines.
The fine amount is $1,000. That we are required to be in line and comparative to the state, consistent with the state code. And the state building code fine amount is $5,000. So we're doing that to take our antiquated code and make it consistent with the state. In addition to that, is all of our fine structure in the code right now is a misdemeanor. That means it is a criminal offense. We are removing all of the criminal language and making them all civil violations, so they will not be criminal in nature.
Okay, so if you were listening, she said that all of our codes now, our current property management codes, are misdemeanors, right? And so that makes it a slight criminal offense, right? Under criminal law.
We are removing all of the criminal language and making them all civil violations, so they will not be criminal in nature.
Okay, so that sounds like a good thing, right? We're removing the misdemeanor application of these codes and turning them into civil so that they won't be criminal. So that's, on the surface, sounds like a good idea. But what happens is what they're doing is they are circumventing your private property rights by applying administrative law. So if they adopt these rules and regulations within your county government, they'll be able to circumvent your private property rights that are protected by the Constitution, whether it's federal Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, or even your state Constitution. So they're going to use administrative law. Well, Dave, how are they going to do that?
So this is an act of adopting the International Property Maintenance Code, the most current edition. Right now, our code for any property maintenance in the county is very outdated. I'll give you an example. We've had several cases where we've had an elderly person living in a house with no running water, no electricity. That is an unsafe living structure. The county can't do anything about it because the code says that home and occupied houses are excluded from any property maintenance.
Okay, did you catch that? She's saying we've got one instance. She's using an example. I guess this is a real world example. Well, an elderly person is living in a house with no running water, maybe no electricity, whatever. And we can't do anything about it because our current code, we can't enter the home and do anything about it. So how is imposing fines on these code infractions going to help this elderly person? How is this going to fix that? And so she'll go on further as we listen. Check it out.
And that puts us in a situation as far as allowing people to live in a home where their life is at risk. So what this does is it enhances our ability to address issues like this. It gives us more tools.
Okay. How does this enhance their ability and give them more tools? What tools? So, again, they're talking about adopting the IPMC, right? The International, geez Louise, why can't I not remember the name of the stupid thing? The International Property Maintenance Codes. So the tools, the main tool that this does by removing the actual what kind of legal issue this is, by removing the misdemeanor aspect of this and turning it into administrative law, now affords them the ability to get what's called an administrative warrant. So in our constitutionally protected rights, which the Constitution doesn't give us rights, our rights are given to us by God, right? The right, our freedom to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, property rights, ownership, right? So, but those are protected by constitutional laws. But what they're talking about by implementing IPMC is removing constitutional law and applying administrative law, so they can go and get what's called an administrative warrant. Now, an administrative warrant basically is signed by a municipal judge. So, in any given county, said code enforcement officer goes to the judge and says, "Your Honor, I need you to sign this warrant so I can enter this person's house when they've refused to allow us to enter, for whatever reason." By the way, you have a right to refuse. It's your private property. So now under IPMC, you won't have a right to refuse. They'll just simply go get an administrative warrant signed by a judge, and under the color of law will show up at your house, right? And under force, at gunpoint even, they will, believe me, and then walk into your house, your private property, even when you refuse their entry, on the idea that you're breaking some kind of property maintenance code that they have created. Now, I don't understand why people are not rejecting this flatly, even the county council, that they think this is a good idea. Again, it's always under the guise of, well, we've got to protect the children. We already have laws about that. If you harm children, you go to prison. You know? And so we don't need more laws, and certainly not property maintenance codes, to protect children or the elderly. Now, I want to show you, this is an older version. So, well, Dave, why are you showing us this? Well, I want you to see the language. It has changed very little. This is Section 104, the right of entry, in the 2003 IPMC, right? The International Property Maintenance Code. So the code official is authorized, and let's zoom in a little bit so you can really see it. The code official is authorized to enter the structure or premises at reasonable times to inspect, subject to constitutional restrictions or unreasonable searches and seizures. There should probably be a comma there, right? So basically it's saying that a code official he's authorized to enter at any reasonable time, but it's subject to your constitutional restrictions, right? Right to private property and on unreasonable searches and seizures, right? These are amendments to our Constitution, folks. If entry is refused or not obtained, the code official is authorized to pursue recourse as provided by law. I wonder what that law might be, right? It's called an administrative search warrant. It's a legal document issued by a judge or magistrate authorizing government agencies to inspect private property to ensure compliance with regulations rather than to investigate a crime. So like the woman said at the podium, this won't be a criminal infraction any longer, which sounds like a good idea. But what they're doing is they're changing their approach. So now it's under administrative law. And they can go in there with an administrative warrant, not a real warrant. So, the administrative warrant requires a lower standard of probable cause than criminal warrants, often based on reasonable, neutral administrative plans. And they're frequently used for health, safety, or zoning inspections, okay? And now, again, this language makes it seem like it's a good thing, folks. These things are being used to circumvent your right to private property, your personal individual rights. Okay? What's the key aspects of administrative search warrants? to verify compliance with statutes or regulations, okay? Rather than to discover evidence of criminal activity. Because you're not, first of all, for something to be a crime, there has to be a victim. That the infraction has to be, have harmed someone. You're not harming anyone, right? The issuing authority of the administrative warrant, typically issued by a judge, a magistrate, or other judicial official upon application by an agency. Okay? Again, the key differences with criminal warrants: no requirement for probable cause. Think about this. He doesn't even have to have it. I just think that maybe there's something being done in there. I don't like it. That's it. Oh, that'll never happen, Dave. Oh, come on, people. The government, we should know from experience. You give them an inch and they're going to take 100 miles. Any government. This thing will infringe on your rights completely. It circumvents your constitutionally protected rights. How often do I have to say that for it to sink in? Okay? The execution of the administrative warrant is limited to authorized inspections, though contraband found during a lawful inspection can often be seized. Okay? Rights. Owners can refuse entry without a warrant, at which point the agent must obtain one from a court. That's it. Go to the judge and say, Your Honor, I need a warrant to go in there because they've infringed this code. I think, because there's no requirement for probable cause. Okay? This is not a good thing. Anytime, by the way, even though it's called International Property Maintenance Codes, it may not actually be international, but the fact of the matter is, adopting these statutes, these codes, goes against our Constitution, which is called the highest law of the land, folks. Go to whitehouse.gov. It'll tell you that the Constitution is the highest law of the land, right? And so they're using these, and again, I don't even think that they're aware that they're doing these things. It sounds good. And at another point, and let me see if I can call it up here. Let's see.
On to Chapter 65, 11082, 118, 134. The code, the fine amount is $1,000. That we are required to be in line and comparative to the state.
Okay. Required. I wanted to bring that up. Required. She says that we're required to be comparative to the state. Nope. That's not accurate, folks. That is not accurate at all. Let me find it. I did a simple Google search. Simple. It's easy. Right? And I said, are IPMC codes required to be adopted by municipalities? No. The International Property Maintenance Code, IPMC, is not automatically required to be adopted by municipalities. What do you mean, not automatically? Huh? The IPMC is a model code published by the International Code Council, the ICC, that must be voluntarily adopted by local governments. Then they're legally enforceable. So wait a minute. These people are voluntarily taking away your rights and imposing international property maintenance codes. They're voluntarily doing this. For her to say that we're required to do anything regarding this is totally in error. Just saying. Look, I even looked up to see if it's in Maryland. Does the state of Maryland require adoption? Maryland does not mandate statewide adoption of the international property codes. Okay? Individual local political subdivisions are responsible for adoption and enforcement, including the IPA. But this is another thing, too. a lot of times your municipal governments will say, we're required by the state to do such and such. No, you're not. You actually have authority over the area that you've been given authority over. You can decide to actually follow certain statutes or not as a municipality. Again, that's another inaccuracy that is fed to the public. Well, we can't do anything, Mr. and Mrs. Joe Public, because our hands are tied. The state says we have to. No, that's not true. Right? And so we listen. Again, if I sound exasperated, I kind of am. This is very concerning as I watch this thing happen and I watch the local leaders of that municipality that I don't even live in unanimously, that's hard to say, vote in favor to follow through with this. I don't think they fully understand what they're doing. And if they do, then it's a heinous act. And so I would encourage you to show up at your county council chambers and speak your mind and say the vote no on such things. All right. God bless y'all.